Hello there YouTube, Devin here again, and today we're going to be doing a remake video. And this remake video is on something that I've been meaning to do a remake on for quite a while because more information has come into light about this, if you want to call it a helmet, and that's kind of a disclaimer. It's if you think it should actually be called a helmet or not, because it has a lot of similarities to a helmet. It's also not quite a helmet. It's also kind of the first of its kind. And that would be this. It's been on the channel before, and this is the, as I called it in the previous video, the Gaede helmet, which isn't quite right depending on how you pronounce it. I've heard it pronounced the Gaede helmet, the Gaede helmet, the Gaede helmet, the Gaede helmet, a bunch of different stuff. It's been called by a bunch of different names, but it's spelled Gaede, and it's actually named after the guy who basically, he didn't develop this, but he paid out of his own pocket to have his army detachment equipped with these personally out of his own pocket, and kind of some donations from his troops and stuff too as well. So and how this came about, this is a German 1915 design, and it's basically a huge brow plate, and it's 6 millimeters of steel, and not all of them looked like this. Some of them are variations. Some of them didn't have this big like nose flap that came down. Some of them had narrower ones, some of them had wider ones, some of them have kind of a more of a brow. Some of them come back over the head further, and they were made by Army Detachment, I'm just gonna say Gaede, whatever, for lack of a better term, because I haven't met this guy, I don't know how he actually pronounced his name. So without having that knowledge of how he preferred to have his name called, I'm just going to call it that, you know. But that very well could not be correct, just so you know. So the Gaede helmet here was developed by Army Detachment's Gaede's artillery workshop. So they were stationed on the Vogue front of the French and German Western Front type battlefield. And it is a came out of the development because in 1915 he noticed, he's one of these very old kind of German generals that is, you know, but he's one of the German generals, especially, well, one of the generals in World War I who was way ahead of his time when it came to thinking, because a lot of generals in World War I were people of basically a Napoleonic era fighting style, where you would march out in lines, you know, stiff upper lip, and, you know, just take it and eventually overwhelm the enemy, and, you know, these senses of honors, and this is war is a gentleman's game to be for an officer's like personal gain and reputation and stuff like that. A lot of the generals in World War I like that, where this guy was more of how can I save the most people while doing the most damage to the enemy? A very forward thinker as far as World War I goes, and he realized that a lot of his troops were taking damage and a lot of head injuries because the Pickelhaube was not doing its job, which was stopping shrapnel. But to be fair, that the Pickelhaube was not designed to do that. It was kind of the last of an era. It was basically a helmet designed to deflect saber blows, to protect the soldier's head from saber blows. It wasn't meant to stop shrapnel or bullets or anything. So they developed this. He went to his artillery workshop and paid out of pocket to get steel and stuff like that, so that his own personal like artillery workshop for his company made these, and some other different little groups made a bunch of them too. There wasn't very many of them made, maybe only a few thousand at most, and you see these through the end of the war. They were very popular with stormtroops, but they weren't really considered a helmet. A lot of collectors consider them a helmet, but as far as the modern standards, it's not really considered a helmet. It's more of a brow plate, but then again, it covers about 3/4 of the head at least, you know, and it works quite well. So I'll show you what it's like. Well, here's what the liner looks like. It's very reminiscent of a Stahlhelm, a later Stahlhelm. Most of the German World War I Stahlhelms have kind of the 3-pad arrangement, but later they would go to a design like this, which was very common later, so it's ahead of its time in that regard. But it actually sits on the head quite well. It's maneuverable, so like you can see out of it. It doesn't really block a lot of your vision, despite having this big nose piece, because your eyes kind of do like what it does with your nose. Your eyes can always see your nose, but it kind of blocks it out. It does that very fast, so it doesn't seem to really block your vision really. You can still look down your rifle sights real easy. It doesn't have these big skirts that come down that can block your ability to use a rifle or other type firearm. It also doesn't block your hearing, which is very well. This is also thick enough to actually stop bullets, so rifle fire won't go through this. And this design was so influential, and it was tested that it would go on to be developed. That brow plate for the Stahlhelm would be based off of this, so which made the Stahlhelm bulletproof from the front, at least anyway. So, and it would hook onto those two little lugs. So this helmet, a lot of them were melted down in 1916 or shortly thereafter to make Stahlhelms, unfortunately. So there isn't very many of them left in existence, and they tended to be favored by stormtroopers. A lot of stormtroopers and like pioneer type troops like that, like assault troops, would keep these through the end of the war, and those are basically the only surviving examples, are the ones that survived through the end of the war with assault troops, because they liked them because they were able to hear, and not only did they look scary and gave a very intimidating look, they also offered a lot of frontal protection without sacrificing vision or hearing, like the later Stahlhelm. It is very heavy though. This thing weighs almost 3 times as much as a regular Stahlhelm. So just to kind of show you the difference here, I have an M18 Stahlhelm, which is the same profile. It doesn't have a liner, so you'll have to like bear with me here. So it would sit about that high on my head, so because I'm in the process of restoring the liner for this thing, so because the liner had the pads missing, but it still had part of the chin strap and the actual aluminum band, so I'm putting pads on the original aluminum band for this and stuff like that. But it would sit about here, and as you can see, it would very easily block some of your hearing, and it blocks a lot of your vision from the kind of the sides here. But it's not as heavy, so if I hold up both of these here next to each other, so these are a year apart, German helmet designs, so they are far-fetched, far different designs. And so here are the lugs, by the way, that were used for ventilation, but it would also be hooked on the big brow plate that would be developed for them would be hooked on. That's what this is based off of. So Germany was technically the first ones to issue this helmet, if you classify it as a helmet. I classify it as a helmet because it's the first thing of its style to do that. So it came out the same year as the French Adrian, kind of in response to the Adrian, but on a smaller scale than the Adrian. It's an excellent design though for what it was meant to do, and it did stop. It did meet all the specifications of a modern helmet. It did stop the threats that it was intended to with quite ease, actually. Kind of at the expense of the wear, though. It does fatigue the soldier quite fast because of its great heft. But it worked, and so by definition, it's a decent helmet, at least to me. But whether you consider it a helmet or not is kind of up to you. Like I said, a lot of historians consider it the first helmet issued by Germany. So albeit a kind of a weird skirting the edge type design. So, but hopefully you guys liked this video and this was a little better, and now you got to actually see one worn by somebody, so hopefully that kind of shows you how they would have looked and everything like that, and hopefully you guys can get one. They do make repros of them. Most of the repros of them are based off of one single design that's kept in a museum that's really good, but there were some shape and size variances of those helmets, the Gaede helmets. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and you subscribe if you like this sort of thing, and I will see all you guys in the next video.